What's going on, people? LP2000 right back at you again. Man, in my last video I said I was going to be doing another movie review, and based on the figures that you see before you, I decided to do a video on my second favorite Godzilla film in the entire franchise, Godzilla vs. Gigan. As you can see, I got all the major monsters that's in the movie with King Ghidorah, Gigan, Godzilla, Godzilla again, Anguirus. Of course, this is going to be, I use this as the stand-in for the Godzilla Tower, but I'll get to that in a second. First off, thank y'all for watching my video, and I hope I can be entertaining for you. But before I get into the pros and the cons and the story or whatnot, let's talk about a little bit of history about the film. The film obviously is called Godzilla vs. Gigan. It's released March 12th, 1972 in Japan. But it wasn't released over here in the States until 1978 on the title of Godzilla on Monster Island. And it was distributed by Cinema Shares. Obviously, the people running Cinema Shares didn't bother to watch the rest of the movie, because yes, there are scenes of Godzilla on Monster Island, but they probably saw just those two scenes like, okay, we'll name it Godzilla on Monster Island, and didn't even bother to watch the rest of the film, which is lazy and lame, but whatever. But Godzilla vs. Gigan is a very, very great film. Like I said, it's my second favorite. But for its history, it wasn't originally going to be what the end product is, or was, rather. The first idea they came up with for this was, it came up under the title Godzilla vs. the Space Monsters, Earth Defense Directive. And in that project, it would have been a showdown of 6 monsters, where it would have been Gigan, Megalon, and a Damagen type of monster called Damagen Tuo, or excuse me, Majin Tuo, which has been like their take on a Damagen character from the Dai movies, the giant statue type monster. However, for budgetary reasons, they decided to scrap that project, and they went with another idea under the working title, The Return of King Ghidorah, and which the emphasis would have been more on King Ghidorah and less emphasis on Gigan, and they were going to be accompanied, or at least helped, by a new monster called Mogu, which was being a supposedly flying beast that can project an aura beam from his mouth, and they were going to oppose Godzilla, Varan, and Rodan. But for budgetary reasons, they decided to scrap the idea and not even have Rodan and Varan or the new monster Mogu in there at all. They decided, since at this point Destroy All Monsters happened 4 years earlier, they decided to make use of the Anguirus suit. So they decided to have Godzilla, Anguirus, and Gigan and King Ghidorah in it. And they switched it where the emphasis was going to be on Gigan. And actually Gigan, the prototype of Gigan was going to be kind of like this, but he was going to have a hook in one hand, hook in one hand, and like a spike ball and chain in the other. But I guess they decided to go with this, which is, I can't really see Gigan in it like that, but whatever. But so they decided to scrap all that and just go over what the end product is. And for those who haven't seen the movie, I'm gonna give a brief synopsis of it. Basically, Godzilla vs. Gigan is the story of this, I believe it's an artist, and he ends up getting a job at this new constructed amusement park called Children's Land, which is based on the Earth's monsters. And in fact, the centerpiece of the amusement park is a tower looking exactly like Godzilla, hence the name Godzilla, the Godzilla Tower. So, but long story short, basically the artist and a couple of his friends find out that the people running the amusement park are actually aliens, and they're going to use signal tapes to control two space monsters, King Ghidorah and new monster Gigan, to destroy the world. And basically, Godzilla and Anguirus come from Monster Island, and they oppose Gigan and King Ghidorah. And after a long, lengthy fight, Godzilla and Anguirus emerge victorious. So that's basically it of the plot. It's really cut and dry. It's another alien taking over the world plot. However, it's not like too repetitious. Of course, at this point, there have been two other films that use that plot of aliens taking over the world. However, this is it's the same plot, but it's still fresh. It's very, very fresh. It's a very colorful film too. With the previous film being Godzilla vs. the Smog Monsters was more of a dark movie. They decided to go back to a more of a lighter tone with this film. However, I don't know how light it really can be, but I'll get to that in a few seconds. But I will talk about the pros and cons of what I believe the movie suffers from and benefits from. The pros is like the monster fights are very they are choreographed awesome. The fight between the four monsters are just tremendous, and it takes a long time. When Godzilla and Anguirus oppose King Ghidorah and Gigan in Tokyo, they arrive at night and the fight don't end till the morning. And ironically, when you watch this film, hence the name, the title of the film is Godzilla vs. Gigan. Honestly, Godzilla doesn't fight Gigan all that much. Majority of the fight, Godzilla ends up battling King Ghidorah, and Anguirus end up battling Gigan more. Until they have like a brief skirmish when they first come across each other, but then Gigan and Godzilla really fight at the very, very end. When Godzilla gets super and then just destroys everything. Well, destroys both monsters, and I think it's good for that reason. Another pro, I like how it's colorful. The director Jun Fukuda is he employs a lot of colors, like bright colors. It's very a colorful film, and it's not dark. It's not gritty. And I like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy gritty Godzilla films, but the fact is it's kind of a bright film and the colors are just screaming at you is very, very great. Also another pro, the fact they use a lot of stock music from other films like Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It's like Akira Ifukube's greatest hits is in this movie. Like Ghidorah's theme, Godzilla from Mothra vs. Godzilla's theme is here. It's just the soundtrack is just great. The music is like perfect for every scene that's in this movie. Especially when Godzilla and Anguirus appear in Tokyo Bay to confront King Ghidorah and Gigan. That's like probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. And the music is it's just great. It's just great. What are the pros? Like I said, overall, it's a very, very great film. And but I will get to the cons. Now, these are cons that I have heard other people talk about, and they're not necessarily my own, but I will address them anyway. Like, one of the cons that people talk about when it comes to this movie is the fact that in this film, Godzilla and Anguirus communicate with each other. In the Japanese version, they talk or they communicate with each other in a comic book way where they have bubbles appearing above their head and like they're talking to each other. In the actual English version, they are actually talking. And that is a con to some folks. It's not a con to me. really. I go along with the story, and it doesn't really bother me that they're talking. I mean, yes, it's weird and it's kind of funky, but to me, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it goes along with the theme of the movie, and that doesn't really bother me. But for some reason, some folks don't like that. They don't like the fact that Godzilla's talking, and he's, I don't know. I mean, that's just for some folks. Another con that people don't like about about this film is the fact that they employ a lot of stock footage, meaning they pull a lot of footage from older movies to put in this film to fill time or to fill scenes. And to those people out there, let me point out two important things that you should really know before you start jumping down this film's throat for employing stock footage. Number one, in the 70s, because this movie was made back in 1972, in the 70s, the budget for the Godzilla films was only nearly half of the budget of a 60s Godzilla film. So they didn't have much money to work with to get these films, to get the story told in these films. So the director had to do what he had to do. And of course, he cut a couple corners. Like there are scenes of Godzilla fighting Ghidorah, but then they jump to another scene where Godzilla's fighting Ghidorah, but it's pulled from another movie. But yet, in that footage, the sky is like clear. But yet, in the original Godzilla vs. Gigan movie, they're fighting at night. But they darkened the tint of the pulled footage to try to match up with the real life footage. And yes, it rubbed people the wrong way. However, I mean, I feel like the director should be given a lot of credit for making something out of nothing. I mean, he wasn't given much to work with budget wise, so he had to do what he had to do. And of course, you know, Godzilla does look different in each shot when the stock footage is used. But you know, but majority of people